Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille. I have a guest today who we have talked to before, but today we're going to talk about the psychology of eating and how it relates to self-worth. This is really something that, well, not too many people have tapped much into. In fact, we hear different things about self-esteem and binge eating and how we need to sort of correct that. But today's guest really is going to get a lot more in tune with how that works and why we shouldn't do it in that fashion. Today, we're going to talk with Francie Healey. She is a health and wellness counselor. She has combined knowledge, expertise, plenty of experience, years of experience, talking and working with people in her practice, and her practices in nutrition and mental health. These are very, very important, and they go hand in hand when we talk about psychology and eating, because you've got mental and behavioral. So both of these are things that we need to talk about in aspect to how to be able to maintain balance and becoming healthy in both arenas, because this is all one, all wrapped up in one. She's a certified health counselor. Again, she has a private practice, and she holds a master's degree in counseling and certification in health counseling. She does public speaking. She's also an author, and she has a book called Eat to Beat Alzheimer's, and there's lots of recipes in there. There's more on that we're going to talk about today, because this is all connected when we talk about the brain, mental health, and eating. We know how detrimental food is and how certain foods play into that. And we've also heard how the new label for Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes. And so we may even touch on that today, but we really want to talk about how this is affecting our self-worth. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show, Francie Healey. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited, Rebecca, to be talking about the psychology of eating today and wellness and worth. It's one of my passions. And, you know, when I started my private practice approximately 10, 11 years ago, and people would come to me asking me what to eat. And they wanted me to be the expert. Just tell me what to eat so that I can feel good in my body, so that my weight is just right, and help me with ways to eat that will stick for my life. Mm-hmm. And I used to think that if I educated people about food and really empowered them in their choices and empowered their inquiry into what works for their bodies, that would create sustainable change.
Okay.
And I believe this wholeheartedly. But what I discovered over the past 10 years is something that I didn't anticipate encountering. And that is, no matter who comes to me, whether it's somebody who struggles with an eating disorder or food addictions or emotional eating, or they feel overweight, or they have, let's say an inflammatory condition and they're feeling a little helpless, it all leads back to self-worth. And I really believe that food is a gateway to our inner worlds. It's a window in. And when we start to look at how we relate to food and how we talk to ourselves around food, we can gain insight into our self-talk. And
okay.
What I mean, does that make sense?
Yes, this is very important. Relating our self-talk to what's in front of us. Go on. This is absolutely incredible.
So thank you. So the self-talk, when you become curious and you pause enough to be the observer of your self-talk, that starts to create a shift in your consciousness. Something wakes up, you break a trance, and you can no longer not see the self-talk. And when you begin to see the self-talk, you can begin to feel what you are ingesting. So you're not just ingesting the food, you're ingesting the thoughts that you are having about yourself ingesting the food. And that has an impact on your body, that has an impact on your brain and your well-being. Because you see, our body is always eavesdropping on our thoughts. And if we can remember that, then we can start to ally with our body from a loving perspective and a curious perspective, and one that says, you matter. You matter enough that I pay attention to what you are revealing to me around how the food impacts my body and how my body is feeling right now. So we transcend the struggle with our body, thinking our body is the problem, right? It's like, oh, there's something wrong with me. And then we believe we are that. We are the problem.
Yes.
So it's a different framework.
It does take a lot to get into utilizing framework of self-talk and then applying the strategies to combat that. And what's really interesting is because, well, let me go back. What's really interesting is that we have been taught that if we look at something that we know does not fall in a specific nutritional guideline, that it's equivalent to certain things. And we have images that come to our mind, and we process those images and take hold of them within ourselves and project that image on us. So there's so many people out there that then look in the mirror and they see something that actually isn't there. It's what they just ingested from looking at the plate to a picture that society has kind of merged together, and now it's sort of morphed into our mirror. And this is really unhealthy for so many reasons, but you're able to decipher all of that and move people beyond that so that they're not making those connections in that way, because not only is that behaviorally an issue, but psychologically it plays a role in a lot of things, and such as your self-esteem, your self-worth, and then it moves on because those foods and everything evolves around the core in health. And so our body ends up having other issues, and certain things can lead to Alzheimer's, but it also can lead to cardiovascular issues. It can lead to a number of other key health ailments, if you will. And so I'm wondering, when you started identifying this connection, this piece that is so crucial that I think so many people in the medical field should have seen, or in the nutritional field should have seen, but it has not resonated or connected, or the light bulb didn't go off, or whatever the case may be. How did you begin to really embrace that and start going, okay, this is what now we need to do to move beyond that?
Well, for me, when I was working with people, it just started to come in where shame started to come in, people's stuckness started to coming in, feelings like they're not enough. And so when I started to go towards that and making that visible, rather than managing that and compartmentalizing the food, it started to move deeper, and I started to see transformation in the people I was working with.
Okay.
And so I moved away from, even though I held all my knowledge about food, I tabled it until we could work on the core around the worthiness and the enoughness, and creating a framework around loving choices and becoming the observer of self-talk, and whether or not those thoughts nourished or depleted the person, so that I could create with somebody I was working with a somatic experience where they could track in their bodies whether or not those thoughts were giving them energy, vitality, inspiration, or whether or not those thoughts were creating a density of blocked energy or depression or anxiety. So to know the difference. Many people are kind of stuck in a mindset that this was the best they could do, like this was a normal way of operating in their lives, like that they had to hustle for their worth, that they had to manage other people to be enough, and had to create an illusion or an appearance that they were good, or that they were likable, or that they were intelligent. And stepping back from that in a loving, gentle way through inquiry and an upgrade in the framework offered them more freedom and liberation in their bodies, so that they could be the experts on their own health, wellness, well-being. It wasn't outside of them. It became this personal relationship with the body.
So really, in essence, the thoughts that we experience is really the food for our mind, our brain. And so this is a really interesting connection, because if you want to take a nutritional guideline and have a plate of how much portion control is of each, I don't think that's something that anybody has ever done for the way we talk to ourselves. Because I know that part of our self-worth is going to come from the reality of certain things. We have to have acceptance that we unfortunately have some things that we need to work on to move forward in. There's some fantastic things about us, and we kind of need to hone those back a little bit. And so just like looking at a nutritional plate where everything is balanced so that the body can function correctly, in essence, really, that needs to be what's in our brain, in how we talk to ourselves, how we look at ourselves, and implementing those things, not just on a daily basis, but sometimes on a minute-to-minute basis, an hour-to-hour basis, and then even having weekly self-checks. I mean, it just seems to me that when we're talking about nutritional value, it isn't something that we just say, okay, I've ingested this one thing that says I'm great today, or, you know, I really look good today, or I feel great. We have to be doing this just like exercise or maintaining a good diet. Those are the same types of things that we have to feed our brain constantly. Am I tracking correct here on what you're saying?
Yes, you could talk about this yourself, because that's exactly what it is. It's
Okay.
It's a practice. It's a way of living your life daily, and it can be minute to minute. And the way that you framed it is a way that I feel many of your listeners can understand it.
Okay.
And it's an upgrade in our relationship to ourselves. Because it's including all of us, and it's actually to me a loving act to get curious about how we talk to ourselves. And around the food is interesting too, because, you know, I might say to somebody, like, you can eat all the kale apple salads that you want, right? And if your thoughts about yourself are demeaning or judgmental, you're really not getting to what you're really hungry for.
Ouch.
You see? And so it really is about, like, you know, what I say is, when, like, for example, people who struggle with overeating, it's not about the food, it's about an emotional undernourishment. And when we take the time to explore what that emotional undernourishment is and what that person is really hungry for, we can meet that need in a way that really holds that person. So it could be a need for connection. It could be a need for touch or attunement. It could be a need for that person to really see, his or her own innate worthiness and his or her own tone that one brings to the world. Because as you said, Rebecca, it doesn't mean in a sense that we don't have our parts of ourselves that we're continuing to grow and evolve and we're working on. That's still there. But how, in spite of that, can we honor the tone that we bring, the light that we bring to our world, and that it's not better or less than another? And I think of it like an orchestra. If we were all cellos, it would not be as magnificent. We need the violins. We need the other instruments to bring their tone, and that's where beauty lies. And if we can lean into developing a relationship with our tone, which includes the wholeness of who we are, that will affect the choices we make around what we eat and how we care for our bodies. Because then we're partnering and we're taking back our power rather than feeling like it's outside of us.
This is fascinating information because, gosh, Francie, I mean, if you think about it, and I think in terms of what you're talking about in the orchestra, and we all have a certain image. Some of us are flutes, some of us are cellos, some of us are whatever instrument that we are, and we definitely want to just, toot those out to the world, right? And yet we in society have this expectation that we all have to be a certain type of person. And so we have keeping up with the Joneses, and then we've got certain features as far as what what society is projecting as beauty, and we embrace that and think that that's what that's supposed to be. And yet that's not the case at all. And it's really interesting when you think about this, because the image of someone, say whatever airbrushed image you come up with, tends to have a certain type of figure, and that doesn't mean that person's healthy. If even in fact that was not an airbrushed photo. And yet you have someone that, if you're talking about weight, could be at a different weight place on the higher end of the scale and be much healthier. And so nutrition is really important, because in mental nutrition, because that's going to play a role in every other part of what's going on in our body in terms of having a healthy structure. And it goes back to your book on Alzheimer's. I keep thinking about this because I've talked to so many people recently who have indicated that they are labeling that now as type 3 diabetes, which all comes back to food, and that it's preventable. And there's so many things that are preventable, but I think the key thing, and that's what we're talking about today, is having that is preventable is a low self-esteem. And so if we're not there yet, we're teetering on it. This is definitely an area to focus on. And for those who are already in a position where their self-worth is kind of dragging from where it should be. And I don't want to say that anybody has really hit the bottom of the barrel, because we are here and we're moving forward, and there's always today, and we can start fresh. So it isn't gone. It isn't lost. Some people, as they age, is a little bit more sagging than others. So I'm going to say that that's just kind of an area that's dragging a little bit, and utilizing the structure in terms of the framework mentally that you have prepared and offer to your clients is extremely valuable. I'd like to offer just a tad to our viewers. So maybe you could share just the beginning and how to get started in implementing that framework. And then later on, we can refer them over to you on how to continue it, because this is crucial for every part of a well-rounded person.
Thank you for asking. That's a really good question. And because it's such a big concept, it can feel a little like, that sounds great, but where do I start? Like, it can be a little overwhelming. And what I recommend is that there's a couple of different things that you can do on your own. And that is, I'll first just start tracking what you eat.
Okay.
And how you feel when you're eating. So that's like right before you eat and during your eating. How does your body feel? Track your thoughts. And I invite in that this happens in a curious way. And that when, so meaning like to move from judgment to curiosity. If the judge emerges, because our minds can be busy, acknowledge the judge, come back to the curiosity. One of the questions that I like to offer for the listeners is to ask yourself, what am I being shown? And it's like, what am I being shown? So what that does is it invites in the inquiry. So at first, what might happen is that you don't know what you're being shown, but the seed has been planted, and it interrupts the trance around judgment. And then the next time you ask it, you may notice a sensation in your body. You may notice, you might notice tension or stress when you eat. You may even notice that it's hard for you to eat in silence, meaning you want to have a TV on, you want to be on your phone. If you're with your family, you may be not present with them and you're distracted by media or electronics. So there's a lack of presence.
So what I'm hearing you say there, though, for really a framework to be successful and for us to hear our thoughts, we really need to be able to listen. And those outside distractors will not allow us to fully grasp what's going on internally. Am I on board with this? Okay. And I think that is hard to do for a lot of people. I don't think our society has been in a position for many, many years without outside distractions. We no longer sit as a family at a dinner table. We sit on the couch watching television, and we're eating a lot of unhealthy foods that don't have substance or good nutritional value to them. And this is very, very common. So instead of saying, okay, you need to stop sitting down and having a piece of pizza in front of the television, what you're saying is the first step is sit down somewhere and now begin to look at the food and listen and feel what's going on within you. And you don't need the distractions so that you can truly hear what you're thinking. You know, Francie, this is something I've taught self-talk for many years. And I think that this has been one area, I have found it to improve areas of domestic violence and relational things. So this is very fascinating for me to see the food connection here with this. But nonetheless, really sitting down and listening to yourself sometimes is difficult because we don't want to hear it. And it's very interesting because that rejection is almost the same type of rejection and the defenses that come up when we're facing someone that has said something that we don't want to hear. And so we tend to avoid it. And our society has just infiltrated us with a million ways to be distracted, from keeping your smartphone with you wherever you're at, including the table. And there's even commercials on that now. And those, which as I'm talking and thinking about this, the light bulb goes off on a specific commercial because it's a breakfast food and everybody's fighting over it. but they're talking about it using their phone.
Mhm.
So I just find this very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting because we do have the influence, like you're saying, with our society and our society's value around around our electronics, and there's an unconsciousness that comes in, and it's not because we're bad. It's not because we're not good people. It's just there's a trance that happens, and it keeps us from being present with our bodies and with our experience in our relationship with our food and those who we love or those who we are connected to. It's a distraction, and like you're saying, is oftentimes the distraction can be a place where we feel safer, because it means that we're not really going to feel the depths of what our body wants to reveal to us. And that can be loneliness. It could be a sense of not being seen. It could be a sense of I'm not enough and I need to distract. And you add the food to it, particularly if there's some heightened tenderness around weight or food, the distractions are more likely to come in. So we can have great compassion for this. And this work isn't for wimps, meaning like if anybody decides to really do this process of getting curious, staying present, being the observer, that's a courageous act. And I really want to name that, because like you're saying, it's like there's something in there that's probably wanting to be revealed, like a need that's needing more loving. And that is why oftentimes I'll eventually bridge it to, what if you started asking yourself, what's the loving choice here from a place of worthiness? Like, what's the loving choice where we still get to hold ourselves and have compassion for ourselves, even when it's hard, even if we turn off put the phones aside for 10 minutes so that we can eat a meal with great presence and notice, call it an experiment. I like saying things are an experiment because that way we don't get too overwhelmed by it. And notice the difference for 10 minutes, how you feel with no distractions, and really doing an inquiry into your body and feeling how your body receives that food. Because what happens when we're distracted, we don't absorb the nutrients. So you can actually be within an hour or two hungry again and not know why. Well, part of it is you didn't get the nutrition and that you needed from the food because you weren't there. You were checked out. You weren't present. It wasn't the enzymes weren't breaking it all down. So it's a difference.
That's amazing to think about, that you can have food in front of you. And this kind of goes in the hands of Alzheimer's, actually, because I was close to someone that we ended up determining had that, and she would forget that she even ate. So that to me sounds like a vicious circle, in that you can have a plate of fruit in front of you and be in full mental capacity, and it's still not processing because we have not registered it mentally. Yet these foods that we're eating over time can develop you to do the exact same thing. This blows my mind. You are onto something here that is essentially critical for people to implement starting now. I mean, there is no reason. And what I like to say about when we're starting something new, a new program, and it doesn't matter what it is, and I really want to specifically hone in on when it comes to our self-esteem, our self-worth, our self-talk. And that is, just because you started it and you were doing really good, and for some reason you got distracted, and it's been a couple of days, there's no failure rate when you start again, because you get to start again. And then and I'm going to go into military and police background here, in that we have muscle memory, so we do as we train. So if we've started to train ourselves in positive self-talk or being aware of our self-talk, even if the first couple of times we did it and then we got distracted, the next time we're going to be doing it for a little bit longer, and then a little longer and a little longer. And this was something that I found was absolutely crucial in behavioral change regarding relationships, was hearing those thoughts. I really, like I said earlier, did not connect it to food. And when I see this now from your perspective, this is blowing my mind. I will also tell you that I was watching a show the other day, and or maybe it was I was listening to a program, but regardless of the fact, this is what came in, that and this, because I'm prior law enforcement, so on and so forth, I'm always on top of what's going on, different things forensically, things that are coming out. I find it fascinating. And all of this ends up connecting mentally and behaviorally somewhere down the road anyway. So one of the things, and I'm going to connect this here, is no matter how hard, this was a church issue. Okay, this is where I picked it up. Bling, light bulb. Is that we are designed where no matter how much people choose not to, and this was in the terms of confession, confess something, it's still in their body, it's still reminiscing, ruminating, whatever, in the brain. And once we confess it and we have the truth out, we're able to be free from that and move forward. So when I apply that in terms of this, we really do want to hear truth about ourselves. We really want to get that out there. And we're really lying to ourselves when we talk to ourselves in a way that society has projected certain things that we have to believe on us. Because that's not who we are. We're each piece in the orchestra, like you said earlier.
That's really beautiful. It reminds me of like making those disowned or disenfranchised parts of us visible, taking them out of hiding, because they're already having their way with us.
Mm-hmm.
You know? The distraction, the numbing, is the illusion that we're in control of it, of those disenfranchised parts.
Mm-hmm.
But when we bring it from hidden to visible, and we bring loving to it and compassion, because there's parts of ourselves that may feel shame,
Mm-hmm.
and we are trying to hide it. And that was the best thing we could have done years ago, let's say, or when we were children, to protect ourselves and to feel safe. But now the invitation is that as adults, we can choose again. We can choose to say, come here. Like I call them the orphans. Come here, orphans. Come back. Come back, and there's going to be enough love to hold you. Mm-hmm. And we're going to go through this, and it will move. You see, this is about building trust.
Yes.
That what is hidden and that which becomes visible, that there's something here that can hold it, that's bigger than us. We don't even need to know what that is, but it's like you can appeal to something bigger. You can simply, be in the loving with that. And when you stay with it, it moves. Otherwise, your body, like you're saying, is absorbing it, and it's taking the hits. And that can come out as pain, that can come out as extra weight, that can come out in many different ways. So that's why our body is showing us something, and that's why I believe our body is our ally.
So let me ask you something, because a lot of people, they're going to say, okay, well, we're talking about loving myself, and I just don't know how to do that. So I can do the self-talk thing, and I can get there, but I still don't know about this. And some of them may never have had children, or may never have come from a home that had a lot of mental, physical type of love and affection. Healthy love and affection is what I'm referring to. So what I would like to say, and you can tell me if this is something that you would agree with, and that is to look at it like this and then apply this to yourself, would be that if I were telling somebody something that I want to show them love, like this would be so beautiful for you if you chose this, or something along those lines, and apply that to ourselves as if we would want that loving thing for somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
would be the first step. And I'm not saying, because there's a lot that goes on into self-worth and self-esteem, but the first step in being able to recognize how to talk to ourselves in a loving way would be as if we were telling somebody else out of love, because or care. If you're not sure about the word love, care.
Mm-hmm.
Because I care for you, I wouldn't want you to do that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I'm really glad you bring that up, because oftentimes that is true, that many people have not had the nurturing and the tenderness and the deep attunement of love to know what that really means for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that example that you provided is a gateway to demonstrate that. So how would you treat your best friend who was having an experience, or having shame, or
Yes.
having negative self-talk? How would you talk to someone like your best friend? What language would you use there?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, if you start to track this, how unkind we are to ourselves, and we would never think of doing that with our loved ones, which is interesting to notice that as well.
Yes,
And
yes. And
so it's a bridge.
a common phrase is, I'm my own worst enemy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what would it be like to be your own best friend? What would it be like as an experiment to practice using language, even if you don't feel it initially, that's the language you would use with a loved one? And I like the way that you said love, and then if somebody isn't there yet, to use another word like caring. What's the caring choice here? What's a kind choice here? Find the word that has resonance for you. Begin there and then build. But I love the example of kind of going outside of yourself, where there's been an action of love, and applying it to you.
I am just amazed at this, and I would like for our audience to be able to get in touch with you. Do you do Skype counseling?
I do. I do Skype counseling sessions, Zoom counseling sessions, as well as some people prefer just the phone. And I also have a website, Self-Worth in Action, and eat2beatalzheimers.com, where you can sign up for my newsletter, get more information about these subjects, upcoming events that can really support you in planting seeds, seeds that help you remember who you are and offer hope. And when we have these seeds of hope, it also opens up inspired eating, inspiration to feel good. And when we lead with that platform, that's where I believe sustainable change comes. It's not because I'm scared, it's because I'm inspired, and I'm worth feeling good, and I'm curious about what that's going to look like for me. So again, selfworthinaction.com, eat2beat, alzheimers.com, and my contact information is on that website, and my book is on Amazon. So Eat to Beat Alzheimer's. Thank you.
I absolutely love it. And I want to thank you, one, for being here today, two, identifying something that is crucial into life change and is going to be such a magnitude of change all the way around. This is an all-encompassing tool that from internal to external, that's going to make a difference. I'm just so beside myself on this. I am so excited also to put it in action myself, because I've already been aware of self-talk, but not connecting it to food. So this, to me, I will tell you, will be something that I absolutely begin to use right after the broadcast is over, no doubt about that. And I will share those things as we continue to talk. I know, Francie, you and I have so many things in our background with with our background, and that as a focus to help other people. I just absolutely love it, and I'm excited to have you on the show time and time again, because just everything that you do and everything that you are just is absolutely beautiful, and really something that also motivates me, but I know motivates others as well. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for identifying this and all that you do to help others.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. You really touched my heart, and I'm so moved that I could do this with you and continue to do this with you and have this type of exchange and partner on this. And I'm truly touched by you, and it's a great privilege to be on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to thank all of you watching out there. As you know, the Rebecca Sounds Reveille show is brought to you by the Liberty Beacon and TLBTV.com. And its focus is to really help you make changes to be healthy. We would like to see everybody moving in a forward direction and not worrying about everything that is expected from you by others in society. We want you to get healthy for you, for your family. And we want to thank you so much for tuning in today. We encourage you to share this with your friends, your family, your coworkers, and everybody you know on social media, because it takes all of us to help each other make change and for all of us to move forward, because some of us don't know the tools are out there. And as soon as that tool is given, guess what? Change begins to happen. So please do encourage the information that we've shared on the broadcast today. And we want to thank you again for watching Rebecca Sounds Reveille.